The first alien carrier broke through the upper atmosphere like a burning god, its hull shedding molten fragments that scorched the air. From the high ridge overlooking the valley, Sergeant Mara Kade watched through her scope as the shimmering columns of soldiers advanced beneath it, their formation unerringly precise. Each alien moved with mechanical grace, their armor flowing like liquid metal, their eyes pulsing in synchronization with unseen commands. The last satellite feed had called them Ketheri, though the name hardly mattered anymore. What mattered was that they were here, methodical and patient, and that humanity was running out of places to hide. The wind hissed across the shattered stone. The once green valley below had been scoured to ash. Trees stood like skeletons, stripped bare by orbital bombardment. Mara adjusted her rifle's thermal filter, watching the Ketheri spread through the ruins of a small town that had once held families, laughter, lives. Now, it was just a battlefield, and she was the ghost that haunted it. A quiet voice crackled through her earpiece. Movement left quadrant. Scouting pattern 3 by 3. You seeing that? Corporal Jonah Ruiz lay prone beside her, half buried beneath a camouflage net patched with torn cloth and foliage. His breath fogged faintly inside his mask. His tone was steady, but Mara could hear the exhaustion beneath it. They'd been awake for 32 hours straight, surviving on adrenaline and recycled rations. I see it, she murmured. Through the scope, 3 alien scouts glided along the main street, their sleek carbines sweeping arcs through the dust. She counted their pace, studied the rhythm. They didn't look afraid. Why would they? Every other human unit in the sector had been obliterated within days. Jonah exhaled softly. Still can't believe they can just walk around out there like it's nothing. No cover, no caution. They really think we're done. Mara adjusted her rifle's bipod. That's their mistake. The rifle was an old Earth model, custom-modified, scarred with years of use. Its barrel had been relined with scavenged alien metal to handle the new plasma rounds they'd learned to craft. The weapon was crude by comparison to Ketheri technology, but she trusted it. Trust mattered more than sophistication. She tracked the lead alien, waiting for the right moment. Every muscle in her body was still, her pulse a slow metronome. The alien paused at an intersection, scanning with a device that hummed softly. Mara watched the reflection of its visor flicker red. That was her window. She squeezed the trigger. The rifle barked once, a sharp crack swallowed by the wind. The plasma round tore through the alien's helmet and burst out the other side in a brief flare of white light. The soldier collapsed without a sound. The other 2 turned instantly, scanning upward, firing wild arcs of blue energy into the hills. Dust rained down around Mara and Jonah's position. Jonah whispered, "One down." "Wait," Mara said. The aliens fanned out, their weapons pulsing. She could see their armor adjusting frequencies, their energy fields shifting to compensate. They were fast learners, but not fast enough. She lined up the second shot. This one she sent through a crumbling wall, using her mental map of the ruins to calculate trajectory. The round punched through debris and struck true. The second alien folded backward. The third fled behind a burned-out transport, fumbling for cover like a creature suddenly aware of mortality. Jonah chuckled under his breath. "Guess they bleed after all." "Everyone does," Mara said quietly. Static hissed faintly in their comms. Somewhere to the south, the alien frequencies spiked, a signal being relayed, a warning transmitted. She knew what came next. There would be a sweep. They would send drones, perhaps even a command detachment. It didn't matter. This ridge wasn't about survival. It was about message. Jonah shifted beside her, wincing as his knee clicked. "You think anyone's left out there?" "Command?" "Civilians." Mara didn't answer immediately. She stared through her scope, watching the surviving alien drag its fallen comrade into cover. The motion was strangely human, desperation mixed with duty. "Maybe," she said finally. "But that's not our problem right now." He grunted. "Right. Ours is making them scared." "Exactly." They reloaded in silence. The smell of burnt ozone clung to the air. In the valley below, the alien column had paused. Their perfect formation was broken now, uneven, uncertain. The commander would be analyzing the data, recalibrating patterns. Mara could almost feel their confusion. Humanity had been easy to crush when it charged in open warfare. But this, two ghosts hidden in the rocks, this they hadn't trained for. Jonah adjusted the sighting drone, letting it crawl forward on spindly legs to relay infrared feeds. He passed the display toward her, the screen flickering faintly. They're deploying a recon sphere. You see the energy signature? Looks like one of their new models. Mara nodded. We'll let it come closer. They always do. He gave a low whistle. You really think two of us can make a dent in all that? She smiled faintly behind her mask. We're not trying to make a dent. We're carving a warning. For a while, they said nothing more. The wind picked up, carrying with it the faint crackle of distant thunder. Or maybe orbital fire. Hard to tell anymore. The planet had been burning for weeks, the skies a constant storm of ash. Mara shifted her position, easing the ache from her shoulder. She thought briefly of the old world. Coffee in the mornings, music leaking from open windows, her younger brother complaining about school. It was strange, the details memory chose to preserve. She pushed the thought away. Distraction was death. Through the scope, the alien recon sphere floated into view, scanning with a pulsing light. She timed its sweep, marked its blind spot. Her finger tightened on the trigger again. The round struck true. The sphere exploded midair, raining molten fragments over the ruins. Jonah hooped softly. That'll wake them up. Mara allowed herself a brief smile. Below, the alien commander's squad had halted entirely. They were re-evaluating their surroundings, their arrogance faltering. She could almost sense the shift in their communication frequency. No longer detached confidence, but something colder. Uncertainty. They'll come harder now, Jonah said. Good, Mara replied, lowering the rifle. Let them come. The horizon shimmered with the distant glow of the carriers descending for another push. The night would soon be alive with motion again, but for now, the valley was still. Mara adjusted her scope one last time, eyes fixed on the alien lines below. The war wasn't over, not by a long shot. Let's show them, she whispered, what primitive can do. Night draped itself over the valley like smoke, broken only by the faint shimmer of alien scanners drifting through the ruins. Mara and Jonah lay motionless in their hide, their bodies molded to the terrain. The silence between them was heavy, filled with the hum of distant machines and the slow rhythm of breathing held too long. Somewhere below, the Kethri were regrouping. The two shots from earlier had changed the pattern of their march. The aliens no longer strode confidently. Now they advanced with deliberate caution, scanning, whispering in frequencies Mara couldn't translate, but could almost feel, vibrations of frustration and disbelief. Jonah adjusted the drone feed, the small display flickering with red signatures. They're sweeping grid 7. Looks like a squad of 6. They're using motion sensors this time. Mara's eyes didn't leave her scope. Doesn't matter. They'll still walk into it. She'd spent the past 2 hours setting the field, scavenged mines from old Earth arsenals, crude proximity traps tied to plasma cells ripped from alien rifles. It wasn't elegant, but it would do the job. The Kethri would never expect humans to repurpose their own technology so quickly. They thought adaptation took time. That was their first mistake. Think they'll come straight through? Jonah asked quietly. They always do. Arrogance is predictable. Jonah grinned faintly, though fatigue dulled his expression. You sound like you've been doing this your whole life. Mara's voice was low, measured. Feels like it. Below, the first alien stepped into the trap line. The explosion wasn't large, just a flash and a concussive pop, but it was enough to rip the near soldier apart. The others reacted instantly, firing into the darkness. Plasma bolts carved through ruined walls, each impact lighting the night in stuttering bursts of blue. Mara and Jonah remained still, invisible amid chaos. Jonah tapped the transmitter. They're scattering. Let them, Mara replied. Her scope tracked a lone figure separating from a group. Panic made even the discipline falter. She exhaled slowly and took the shot. Another one down. The air vibrated with alien static. Mara could tell the commander was furious. Orders crackled across the alien network. The valley came alive with search drones. Mechanical eyes swept the ground in overlapping arcs. One passed so close to their ridge that its lights painted their faces in ghostly red for a heartbeat before moving on. Jonah swallowed hard. That was too close. Mara kept her rifle steady. If they'd seen us, we'd already be dead. They're guessing now. A moment passed before he said, "You think they ever feel fear?" "Like we do." "Fear isn't foreign to them," she said softly. "They've just forgotten what it's for." The aliens advanced again, tighter formations this time, energy shields flaring faintly. They were adapting, but their changes were surface deep. They couldn't comprehend patience, the human art of waiting for the perfect moment. Mara and Jonah watched, waited, breathed as one. When the second explosion hit, it was bigger. 2 traps went off simultaneously, tearing through half the squad. The shockwave rolled up the ridge, peppering them with dust. Jonah coughed quietly, blood flecking his lip. "You're hit," Mara said, her tone flat but her eyes sharp. "Just debris," he lied, pressing a hand to his side. "Doesn't matter." She knew it did, but said nothing. Words couldn't fix what they had left. She adjusted her scope again, scanning the surviving aliens as they fell back toward the transport wreckage. The commander would be recalibrating strategy. Mara could almost sense his mind. Cold, logical, try to quantify something that refused to fit equations. Jonah worked quickly, resetting decoy emitters. The devices flickered, sending false heat signatures into the valley. Within minutes, the alien scanners would see dozens of ghosts where only 2 humans existed. "Think this'll hold them off long enough for exfil?" he asked. Mara's lips tightened. "There's no exfil." He looked at her sharply, but she didn't elaborate. Their orders had never included extraction. They were the distraction, a final message written in enemy casualties. She watched realization settle over him, the flicker of understanding. He didn't argue. Instead, he nodded once and returned to work, his movements slower now, deliberate. A ripple of light caught Mara's eye. The aliens were changing tactics again. Drones began firing flares into the air, bathing the valley in harsh, shifting light. Shadows jumped and twisted, revealing nothing and everything. The Kethri were trying to draw them out. "Smart," Jonah muttered. "Too late," Mara said. She sighted through her scope, choosing a target among the flares. One alien stood higher than the others. Command unit, by its insignia glow. She adjusted for distance, wind, the distortion of heat. Then she fired. The round pierced the alien's armor, and the body fell backward, tumbling down the slope. For a brief moment, the valley froze. The alien frequency spiked again, not in rage this time, but confusion. Jonah chuckled weakly. "They'll start thinking there's an entire platoon up here. Good. Let them waste time guessing." Minutes passed. The light faded. The valley was littered with motionless shapes, alien bodies, shattered drones, fragments of glowing armor. The silence that followed was almost unbearable. Mara checked Jonah again. His face was pale, the wound darker now, soaking through his fatigues. "Stay with me," she said. He managed a grin. "Not going anywhere, Sarge. You still owe me a drink when this is done." She almost smiled, then looked away. Through the scope, she saw more movement on the horizon. Another wave assembling. Reinforcements. The first wave had failed, but the next would not hesitate. Jonah noticed her stillness. "They're bringing more?" "Always do." He leaned back against a rock, breathing unevenly. "Then we make them pay for it." The words carried no bravado, just quiet certainty. Mara nodded. She adjusted her sights once more, marking new range indicators. They were running out of ammunition, out of time, but not out of purpose. Below, the alien commander's voice echoed through translation static. The tone was clipped, strained. For the first time, Mara heard something she hadn't before, a tremor beneath the composure. Jonah's eyes flickered toward her. "You hear that?" "I do. What's it mean?" Mara chambered her next round. "It means they're starting to understand." A gust of wind swept across the ridge, carrying ash and silence. The aliens began to regroup, hesitant now, as if aware they were being watched by something more than soldiers, by predators born from desperation. Jonah steadied his rifle beside hers, his voice a faint whisper. They still think they're hunting us. Mara's eyes stayed on the scope. Let them keep thinking that. Below, another column of light shimmered, the approach of the next wave. She didn't flinch. She simply lined up her sights, the barrel steady as stone, her voice low and certain. Time to remind them who the real hunters are. The dawn came blood-red, spilling over the jagged skyline like a wound opening across the horizon. Smoke clung to the valley floor, twisting between the ruins where the Ketheri had fallen during the night. Mara's rifle lay across her knees, its metal scarred, barrel blackened from too many shots. Beside her, Jonah stirred, his breath shallow. The wound at his side had darkened to a dull violet, soaked through the fabric. He tried to push himself upright, but she pressed a hand against his shoulder. "Don't," she said softly. "You'll reopen it." He gave a weak laugh. "Reopen what? Think I'm past that stage." Mara didn't answer. She could see the tremor in his hands, the way his skin had gone pale beneath the grime. Below them, the alien forces had reassembled. The second wave was larger, dozens of armored figures, supported by mechanical walkers whose steps made the earth tremble. The commander stood at the center, his armor adorned with new markings, symbols of command or pride. Mara couldn't tell the difference anymore. Pride always came before the fall. Jonah squinted toward the movement. "They're not retreating. They don't know how," Mara replied. Her voice carried no malice, only exhaustion. "They'll keep coming until something stops them." He coughed, wiping blood from his mouth. "Guess that's us then." She looked down the ridge, calculating angles, distances. The traps were mostly spent, their ammunition nearly gone. 2 humans against an army. It would end here, but not without consequence. Jonah noticed her silence. "You've got that look again, the one right before you do something reckless." "Reckless keeps us alive," she said. "Alive." He smiled faintly. "That's a generous word for it." The Ketheri walkers began to climb the slope, their mechanical limbs puncturing stone. Mara reached for the detonator, strapped to her belt. A crude device linked to the last of their charges buried beneath the ridge. Jonah caught her hand weakly. "You blow that now. You'll bury us both." She met his eyes. "Then we'll take them with us." He exhaled, the ghost of a laugh escaping his lips. "Knew you'd say that." The air vibrated with the sound of the approaching engines. The aliens advanced in precision lines, their shields shimmering faintly in the dawn light. Plasma fire erupted from their ranks, searing across the rocks. Mara ducked behind cover, her ears ringing. The ridge shook under the bombardment. Chunks of debris flew past, cutting shallow lines across her cheek. Jonah forced himself into a sitting position, dragging his rifle into place. His breathing was ragged, each inhale a struggle. "Give me the high marks. I'll cover the slope." "Jonah." "Do it," he insisted, voice tight with pain. "You take the walkers. Make it count." Mara hesitated, then nodded once. They worked in silence, the unspoken rhythm of soldiers who no longer needed words. When she leaned out to aim, she saw the commander again, directing the assault with precise gestures. The alien moved with confidence still, but there was a flicker, an edge of caution in its stance. They had learned fear, even if they hadn't named it yet. Her first shot struck the leg joint of a walker. The machine staggered, collapsing sideways into the ranks. Jonah took another shot, clipping a soldier through the chest. The valley echoed with a metallic scream of grinding gears and alien cries. The Ketheri began to scatter. Jonah's laughter broke through the noise, short and breathless. "You see that? They're slipping." Mara allowed herself a thin smile. Not for long. The commander signaled again, and new drones took to the air, spinning through the smoke like hornets. Their sensors swept the ridge, locking onto movement. One of them exploded mid-flight. Jonah's shot had found its core. Another burst overhead, raining sparks. But there were too many. A plasma bolt tore through the rock near Jonah, sending a shard into his shoulder. He didn't cry out. His hands steadied the rifle again, fingers trembling but sure. "I've got one left," he muttered. "Make yours count, too." Mara knew what he meant. The detonator rested against her thigh, small and unassuming, the last card in a losing hand. She took aim at the commander one final time. The alien raised his head as if sensing her through the haze. For a heartbeat, their eyes met across the battlefield. Two predators who had run out of prey. She fired. The shot cut through the air, a perfect arc that struck the commander square in the chest. He staggered backward, armor cracking. The line faltered. The walkers hesitated. Mara pressed the detonator. The explosion ripped through the ridge, a chain of thunder and light. The ground folded inward, swallowing stone, fire, and metal. The alien formation shattered. When the shock wave passed, the valley lay silent, filled with dust and echoes. Mara blinked through the haze, ears ringing. The ridge was half gone, her rifle buried somewhere beneath rubble. Jonah lay slumped against a rock, motionless except for the faint rise and fall of his chest. She crawled toward him, her limbs heavy, lungs burning from the smoke. He looked up at her, eyes unfocused. Did we win? She took his hand. We made them remember us. He smiled faintly, then exhaled and went still. Mara sat beside him, numb. The distant hum of alien engines receded, the survivors retreating beyond the ridge. They wouldn't stay gone forever, but something fundamental had shifted. The Ketheri had come to crush humanity beneath their strength. Instead, they had learned what strength truly was, the will to endure, to fight even when nothing was left to fight for. Mara tore Jonah's tags from his uniform and slipped them into her pocket. Her body screamed for rest, but she forced herself to stand. Across the valley, columns of smoke rose where the enemy's advance had stalled. In the radio static, faint voices crackled, human frequencies broken but alive. Other survivors, other ghosts, answering her beacon. She keyed the transmitter and spoke into the silence. This is Sergeant Kade, 5th Recon. Ridge secure. Resistance continues. There was a long pause, then a faint reply. Copy that, Sergeant. We hear you. The words steadied her more than she expected. She looked down at Jonah one last time before turning her gaze to the horizon. The sun had burned through the smoke, sharp and blinding. The world was still broken, but it was theirs. She raised her rifle in salute, the gesture quiet and resolute. They thought they'd find prey, she whispered. Instead, they found hunters. The wind carried her words into the valley, across the dead and the living alike, a promise and a warning both.